Something different for you guys today from 2 years ago. This is the Hobao Hyper VS2. It's a 1/8 scale 4-wheel drive racing buggy. I've got the almost ready to run here. You can get it in electric and also as a nitro. I literally painted the body today. It's freshly made and I can't wait to check it out with you guys. Let's do it. There's something about this manufacturer and their vehicles. Now, we looked at the Hobao Hyper 10 SC. It's got its own video on the channel that you can find here, and I was very impressed with this car. I've since paid closer attention to it, and I've been driving all of these, whatever it is. I've got 14 short course trucks now as we get closer to doing our comparison, and I keep finding this car impresses me. Every time I just run a pack through it, I just get impressed again at just how nice it is. And it's far from the most expensive of the cars here too. So I said this was the almost ready to run. Let me take you through what you get in the pack. This thing comes in the box without the wheels attached and with a blank body, which is great. Sticker sheet, basic, gives you the stickers for the side and the wing and however you want to apply it to the body. I used about 6 different colors in this thing, and we're going to see how that came out soon because it is translucent, the finish I've done. There is window masking, which I didn't bother to apply given you've got stickers for the windows anyways. There's a clever little spring for the older style antennas, which bolts on neatly and comes up through the body if you want to use it. They give you a bunch of carbon steel Allen keys as well, including this gigantic one, because we've got, I think it's called pillow ball arrangement in the front there. And this allows you to adjust camber. For anyone who's new to the channel, g'day, I'm Craig. I'm not a racer. The only competitive stuff I do is with rock crawling, and I mean, we've covered that well on the channel, but I'm a basher. Yes, and in front of me here, this is a racing car, I realize that, but I'm going to give you the basher's perspective, just the person who's buying it for enjoyment. That could be you. This is the manual, and I actually found it useful for the exploded parts spread. That's actually quite good. Hobao continue to impress me with their design quality. There is some stuff that you would expect to find in a buggy like this. You would expect to find sway bars. You would expect to find aluminium or aluminum suspension. You would expect to find room for decent sized batteries. You would expect to find a body that's well enough balanced that it's able to take good power. Metal axles and all the rest of it. I would expect all that. What I don't necessarily expect is just how nicely finished some of this stuff is. I don't think there's a single sharp corner on this entire thing. The center diff hasn't leaked, the suspension hasn't leaked, and they come pre-assembled because this isn't almost ready to run. So it's basically attach the wheels and the wing, paint the body, and BYO electronics. And it all just went in so easily. I'm seeing gussets on a lot of these parts. One thing that jumped out to me straight away was there were boots on the suspension, but there's also a shield in the back to protect all the moving assembly, but particularly the shocks. So the shocks are doubly protected in the rear. It's really nice. 3.5 kilos, give or take, they say for electric. Let's see. So 3.2 kilos is what I've got here. Plenty of room for big motors. This is a 4274, and this is in fact a rock crawling motor. It's one of Holmes's Puller Pros, and it's a censored unit. Comes with a sensor cable. I didn't install that. I've just gone with a cheap Rocket 150 amp. I bought a few of these different ones, 150s and 160s, and they take up to 6S. The motor takes up to 6S. It comes with a 16 tooth pinion stock, and this is a 2100 kV motor. I also bought the Rocket programming card, which is only like 10 bucks more. The servo's running 7.4 volts, being an HV servo, high voltage servo. Little details as I put it together just were very pleasing. The turnbuckles on the rear especially are absolutely enormous. The fronts are still hefty, but gee, the rear ones are huge. All said and done, I like how this thing sits. It's just a beautiful, beautiful car. They're fairly firm sway bars as well. But for something that's this big, an 8 scale thing, that's probably going to pull somewhere in the vicinity of 80 or 90k an hour in this configuration, I imagine. You want to have things that are fairly solid. I couldn't find any issues with geometry out of the box. There's a very slight amount of toe out on the front. Good. The tires are omnidirectional, so that was fine, and it's all just gone together. You really don't have to do much work with an almost ready to run. I'd really prefer a kit just personal preference. I like to be able to put the thing together because then I know how it's gone together, and you tend to notice stuff that you don't see in an almost ready to run. But even just with an ARTR, putting the motor in with the little collars for the screws there, and their socket head screws too. Same deal with the machined aluminium that holds the wing on with adjustable angle mounts too on the back. Just beautiful, beautiful design. You have to attach the bullet plugs to the motor, and you need a soldering iron for that. Now, it's not uncommon to use a set of wires that come off the motor, but it's also acceptable to put them straight on the motor, so let me show you how I did that. I want to show you a soldering iron that I got from Secure, well, a company called Secure. They have Amazon listing, which I'll stick in the description. There's something I like about this little iron that the cheaper stuff doesn't do. For a start, it runs from USB-C. Like, that's a big deal, because if you're in the field, you got a power pack with you, or your car, as long as the PD or QC3, like the modern one, it'll work just fine. You've got the contacts inside for both this fella and for the longer ones. It goes in the front and it's secured with a couple of screws. You don't need to do it tight, it's just really got to hold it in. They include a little stand in the pack. Oh no, they do include the screw, the tool and the screw, so there you go. So it comes in the packet. With this little sponge, I never really recommend these sponges. If you're in a pinch, put water in it and you can clean it, but I don't recommend it. Better to use something like this, the Hobao 599B. I linked all my electronic stuff recently. I'll dump it in this description as well, because I do a fair bit of soldering and I like these. So basically all we're going to need today is that. That's just to clean the tip and solder. This is 1mm solder, which is actually appropriate for this. To stop the motor rolling, you can use any pair of pliers and sit it in there like that. It's not going anywhere if you don't push it around. And the nice thing is it's got a start and stop feature and a sleep feature. So currently it's off. There's a little OLED screen here. Now it says 12 volts because it's detected. That's why you need QC or PD 3.0. She's warming up towards 300. We're going to bang it up to, hang on, it goes from 200 to 450. We're going to bang it up to 400 degrees. We're not doing any precision work here. We're going to actually put these fellas on the motor. To do this kind of soldering, we're going to need to tin the connectors and then apply them. We're going to need a pair of tweezers, because obviously you can't hold this without burning yourself. Two things I like about this little iron that my little $6 job doesn't do. My little, I've got another one that's powered by a 2S or 3S LiPo, or 12 volts. It's always on. This thing has sleep, which is really nice. It also has the adjustable temperature, and you can preset a bunch of different things in here. It's a fairly comprehensive manual, and it's quite basic, but for what it is, it's pretty nifty. Now, I didn't pay for this, but I'm really glad to have it. It's the kind of thing I'm going to use as my main machine from now on. So it's got a sleep temperature at 200 and a standby time, so when you pick it up, it'll turn on again. So that's actually pretty good. Those features alone are enough for me to really like this thing. Right, so here's what we're going to do. It says it's at 400 already, which is brilliant. It's even got a little battery level monitor and a voltage input, so what's coming from my little power pack. So it says it's getting 12.1 volts, which is handy dandy, and look at that, she's hot. Ignore my dog in the background. This packs quite a punch from USB, honestly. Alright, now if your surface isn't taking the solder straight away, what you can do is actually scratch the contacts a little bit with something sharp. And that'll just help the solder have little cracks to kind of flow into, basically. With big contacts like this, it does actually need to get quite hot, so whether your iron's large or small, like I can see the temperature's dropping right off. This is a heatsink for it. It's dropped down to 350 already, so you go as hot as you can. There we go, and now it's tinned. So with soldering, sorry, I should angle that towards you. With soldering, the general key for soldering is to minimize how much heat goes into your components. There are two exceptions really. One is when you're tinning a big contact like this. Gee, it's dropped right down, 280, 290, now it's fighting back as it gets hotter. It's interesting to see the temperature readout actually. She's heating up again. Yeah, one is big contacts like this where it needs to get hot enough for the solder to flow, because now it's tinned. And the other one is when you're doing fat wires like 10 gauge or 8 gauge. you need the heat in the wire for it to actually flow. So it's dropped back down under 300 degrees Celsius again, but it's fighting back bravely. 291. Come on, little iron. 290. 289. You can do it. No, there we go. She's gone back up now. Now this iron's not really designed for this kind of work. My other, ironically, my little cheap one is actually going to be better suited here. The one that has no maximum temperature on it. There's a hole in these for solder to be fed into. We might actually use that. What I'm going to do is put the iron inside. Now I can hold it there because I haven't got a third hand. I'm going to feed the solder inside, which is now going to melt it straight away. That'll transfer the heat through the component, and I'll feed a bit on the underside because it should be getting hot now, and in a sec it's going to flood and go flat. There we go. Oh no, come back, little fella. There we are, it's still hot. We're good. There's another thing you can use if you're struggling, and that is to add flux from a flux pen. I haven't got my flux down here, but that's another little thing you can use to help if solder's not flowing like you think it should be. Now we're not going to need a lot of solder here. We really just want it to have a nice little connection. That's pretty good. Yeah, good. And this is such that I can pull the connector off in future if I want, and we'll be fine. So that's actually tidy and permanent. It's going to be held on quite well. So it's plenty strong, right? So you won't have to worry about it. We're going to do the same thing for the others, and then we're going to get this car together. That's all the soldering I'm going to need to do, so that's great. Find a link in the description for where you can get this if you're interested. I'll also have a link to my very cheap one that's also easy to recommend. This is great for finer work. It's great for PCBs. I'm really enjoying using it. I love seeing the temperature gauge on it. I actually think that's quite a spiffy little feature. And now we're going to continue with this build. So I'll end this section here. Let's keep going. Right, last thing to tell you is I'm using the AFHDS3 protocol with my FlySky Noble Pro. We're using one of the many FGR4Ss, I think, as far as receiving goes. Really, all that's left to do is to put a battery in this thing and drive it. One nice thing I do like about this design is that the body goes so nicely over everything. It doesn't just snap in. You've got to be a bit careful. But really and truly, I like this. Now again, not a sponsored video. I bought this. I don't even know if I'll be able to give you a sponsored link to look into it yourself, but have a look anyway, because I'll stick it in the description if you're interested in this thing. If the quality of the 10SC is anything to go by, this is going to be a winner. I really like how this thing sits. I like how it looks, and I like especially that the body, while allowing some air to exit out the back and a little in the front, it's actually fairly well sealed, so we're not going to see a lot of gunk getting in here, even if you're running in muddy conditions. Everything needs maintenance if it gets wet. I don't intend on getting this overly wet or overly dusty, but you know, you drive a car in the outside world and things are going to happen. So it's nice when the interior is so well protected out of the box. The other thing that I like, having just done so many short course trucks recently, there's nothing to worry about with this buggy as far as rubbing on the body or the body even being particularly damaged. The biggest thing that can take damage in off-road cars like this, really, whether it's a buggy or a truggy, is that whole rear wing and assembly and the shock towers. These things tend to take quite a hammering if you're bashing, not so much if you're racing, but I imagine one of the biggest things that get damaged would be this front upper area here, because in an upside down crash, that's what's just going to hit. You're going to be bending shocks and bending the shock tower. It's actually a pretty ugly landing, no matter how you look at it. They are plastic in the middle and aluminum around the outside on lovely gusseted spaces, and everything is well spaced. This is a nice, it looks like a 4mm. Yeah, it's 4mm shock towers front and rear, so pretty nice. The shocks have been filled correctly. There's no bleeder valve on them, by the way, but they sit nicely. I like where the preload is. You want it to be able to sit down. You don't want it to be particularly high. The front could even bear to go down a bit further, honestly. But hello, not a racer, just a basher. So I can really only go with what I think looks right. I don't have any track experience, so take that context in when you're watching me talk about this thing. Let's get it down onto the track. We're just going to run a small 2700 milliamp hour 4S battery. I could run up to 6S, I could run as low as 3S, or even 2S honestly, although she'd be a bit slow on 2S. We're going to run 4 because I think that's probably about right for my skill level. Let us see what we can see. It's nice and tidy, right? You've even got a little gap to get your finger in to get to the power switch under the body. I like that. It also reminds you where it is. So we'll get this thing on. It's come out pretty nice, eh? I'm looking forward to seeing how it looks in the sun. Convenient little power switch bit that tells me where the switch is. Very easy to find. Okay, I haven't trimmed anything yet. We should probably make sure we're well, she's got some pep in her step, I tell you what. We've already rolled a tyre. Jeez. I've had to put wheels on this from the Mojave 4, but it gets us running, doesn't it? The diameter of this thing is very slightly higher, so it's going to be a bit faster. Now we're just going to change that trim. Gee, it sounds nice though. This thing's absolutely crazy. Yeah, we picked up the stick straight away. There we go. All right, I think we're good. Okay, let's get out there. Right, a quick look at just straight line stability. I mean, it's a racing buggy, so of course it is going to be stable. Oh, it just floats. This is the best part about buggies. They float in the air. They're so stable, even with all that mass. So stable. I need to get this thing down to Vass's Altona bike jumps. This will be the one to bring. Oh, it's just beautiful. I'm barely on the throttle. She's already just absolutely going for it. We're just easing into this. I know it's not made for this. I can't help myself. All right, let's get to the track. Gosh, it makes a nice noise. It's been a while, I haven't cleaned the track, sorry. Now I put the braking on 100%, I shouldn't have. I think it wants to be a bit lower. It's also extremely fast on the steering. So stable. Now, this isn't quite fair to this buggy because we're on a tiny little track for a 1/8 scale. This is much too small. The jumps are way too short. The corners are too tight. And we're using the wheels and tires from the Armour Mojave 4S. And so everything's stacked against this little buggy, but I tell you what, even out of shape like that, like it landed skidding sideways, it's just smooth as silk. It makes a beautiful noise. And see, the nice thing about buggies is that their weight is just so well held together. It's so low and smooth. The center diff's actually fairly loose. It's got a little bit of grip to it, but it allows a lot of spin, which makes more sense in a car like this than in a monster truck, which is really more what I'm used to for this kind of thing, I suppose. It can't stretch its legs on this thing, especially on 4S. I don't think I've gone over about a third of throttle. I am having a lot of fun though. It's so stable. So even with my very average driving and a very tight course and the wrong shoes, oh, it's good. It's so good. If you haven't had a Hobao before, let me encourage you to check him out. Right, that's enough. You've seen the course for what it's worth. Let's do a bit more on the jumps. Really what I'm looking for is now just bashability. We already know it floats nicely. Oh, it corrects beautifully in the air, but you can't flip it back over because they're so flat. The good news is it's tough. Oof. Gosh, this is nice to drive. It's so nice to drive. Now, everything's not all about jumps with the buggy. We want to see how it handles just regularly at speed. I've got sticks everywhere, leaves, the lot. Also keep in mind just how much stuff you're seeing flying everywhere when we take the lid off in a minute. My yard, big as it is, still isn't big enough to get to full throttle, unfortunately. Gee, it's nice when it flips back on its wheels. Oh, just from the feel of driving, this is one of my favourite off-road cars. It just is. How have I not been playing with buggies much before? And it sounds nice. Gee, it sounds good. I don't really want to do acrobatic stuff with it because it's just not for that. And the tiniest bit of braking then makes so much difference in the air. I just don't have the space for straight line speed here. This thing is a work of art. It is a work of art. Satisfying to drive, so stable. Well, there you go, my friends, the Hobao Hyper VS2 with different shoes on, but oh yeah. So despite a wardrobe malfunction, I've got the right glue coming, but I've run out of tire glue and I didn't realize. I used standard super glue and it just, the first pull on the throttle just ripped the wheels out of the insides of the tires. So I'll take these off, clean them properly, put the glue back on. So these were the Armour Mojave 4S tires and wheels. They're ever so slightly bigger. Not a lot though, like just less than the depth of my finger bigger on the hole. And that, of course, is the equivalent of going up a tooth in the pinion, really. So we put a bit of stress on everything today on 4S. ESC is not too bad. The motor is too hot to touch, but it's just barely. It is not happy. Battery's warm. So everything was under a little bit of stress just then with the bigger tires. 2100 kV motor and 16-tooth pinion, which is what it comes with, and 150 amp ESC. That is about right, I think, with the regular tires. These weigh a bit less as well. So we asked a bit more of this system than what it's actually made for. But look, remember down there before when I said, notice how much gravel and just leaves and dust, it's all kicking up. It's pretty clean inside. And although airflow does get through in these little gaps, it's a good enough seal that it keeps almost everything out. So cleaning is minimal on the inside, which I'm very happy about. I'm happy to do maintenance, but Yeah, that's a bit. Now, we had a few nasty tumbles when I was abusing the car. I didn't go to town on it because it's not a monster truck. It's not a truggy. It's a buggy designed for a racetrack. So already the driving you just saw was, I would say, gently abusive, if that's okay to say on YouTube. It really could have been worse, but it still really wasn't what it's made for. It's made for those lovely big rolling landings where you can take a jump or even two and land on the down. You're always looking for smoothness with the buggy. But it handled it admirably. I have no concerns about the drivetrain being an issue, unless you went absolutely nuts with bigger voltage. You'd get longer run time slightly with a 3S battery, and with this setup of electronics, it'd be easier on everything. I think for bashing 3S is probably actually good with these specs. See the description below for what I used. It's just basic stuff. Well, apart from the motor, that's a really nice motor. Holmes Hobbies makes good stuff, and I like his stuff, but it's expensive. When you've got this many cars, I can't do Holmes in everything because it adds up. So as long as that works out okay, sorry John if you're watching, that combined with the Rocket ESC, yeah, okay. But look, it worked. Censored motor, not censored ESC, so you just don't use the sensor cable. So there's a bit of cogging down low, but not much. This could be geared to go a lot faster, but I wouldn't want it faster in an environment like this. And the faster you go, remember, more top speed you gear in, the less acceleration and punch you have. This thing's perfect how it is. I really like it. This one I predict will hold up nicely. With just mild maintenance to keep the dust out of the running stuff, I don't see a problem with this car. It's well made. The parts are listed in the manual as well, so you've got everything you need. On first battery pack at least, it's an easy recommend. Put it that way. It's been out for 2 years now, so I'll be far from the only voice speaking on this car. Check him out on YouTube. That's one of the great things about this platform, isn't it? And I will run a few more packs through this thing, and I'll have a smile on my face doing it because it's just fun. Thanks to my wonderful channel members. Here they are. This is the Scratch Build guys, Tier 3. They get their name on the video. Hi guys, thank you so much. Tier 2 and 3 both get to see this video before everybody else. And to all three of my tiers of people who pay me a few bucks each month, or to more than a few, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And to all of you watching, I appreciate you guys. Really appreciate you watching. Thank you. Throw me a like if you enjoyed it. I've got a bunch more coming. I'm extremely busy, but there's so much that's like half done, 2/3 done. More videos coming soon, and there's a good diverse amount of stuff coming. I just love RC stuff, isn't it great? So I'll just keep sharing my adventures with you, and thank you for coming along on the journey. I'll catch you next time. It's attached. It comes with a... Now this thing comes... Hey dog, Lana, leave it. Come here dog. Now Hobao, I voiced it Hobao. Servo is running it. Dog. Lana. Hey, I need you to relax dog. Come on. If you scratch up your surfaces, oh this dog. If the quality of the 10SC that I showed you before, if the quality of their 10N... Hey Lana, come here dog. Lana. Hey, I need you to chill out a bit, pups. Here, come here. Come on your bed. There you go. If the quality